my ex, and the neighborhood crackhead that hangs out at 7-Eleven. They're all people that I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole. And in this episode, we're definitely going to be talking about people that we are not going to be touching with a 10-foot pole anytime soon, whether that's dynasty, or redraft, or whatever type of format your league currently has. Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Nader with another legendary Sleeper Wire episode. Of course, I am alongside the #1 Australian analyst, Sheahan. How you doing over there?
I'm good. We're still recovering from the biggest game of the year, the Pro Bowl.
Oh, true.
So it feels like a step down to now be talking about the Super Bowl this week after the cavalcade of brilliant football we saw on the weekend. All the intensity of an old person getting out of the bath, but with none of the danger.
You know, I had a hard time just taking my eyes off of that screen 24/7 throughout that game. Even when the game was over, I was still watching it just because it was just that crazy.
The highlight of the game is Mac Jones running 80 yards on a play that doesn't even count, and then everyone, as they say, hitting the gritty, getting excited because he hit the gritty. Maybe it's time to review what we're doing. So maybe it's the Pro Bowl we don't want to touch with the 10-foot pole, but we can get to that.
Yeah, I'm over the Pro Bowl. I feel like now at this point, it's kind of just more recognition than an actual game. I feel like you should just kind of get the recognition. It's like the All-Pro. Like, okay, you made the Pro Bowl. Congratulations. Okay, let's move on. But of course, quietly and patiently sitting alongside us right now, we are joined by a special guest, founder of Six Pack Fantasy, host of the Fantasy Pack Hour, and two-time top 5 Fantasy Pros ranker, Joe Bond. How you doing over there?
Hey guys, doing good over here. Thanks for having me on. How you guys doing?
You know, I did rankings for the first time on Fantasy Pros. I think one time I got #1 for defense, and I think I got #1 for #3 for kickers, and then wide receivers. I think I got #7 a handful of times, but other than that, for quarterbacks and running backs and wide receivers, I did not do good.
This year was I didn't finish top 5 this year. It was I was 24th, I think, overall. I was decent at. I was actually top 10 for running backs and receivers at one point, both. And then the last 3 weeks, it kind of dropped out. And the tight ends, I was always just sort of middle ground. Quarterbacks, I got absolutely destroyed on. I could not figure out quarterbacks. I was never picking the random dude Zach Wilson when he was a top 5 quarterback that one random week. Nobody picked that, but apparently somebody did put him higher than I did because, anyway, I never did that. I just went with the guys who I trusted, and I didn't score very well in quarterbacks, and that's what really helped me back this year. But
so nobody ever really gave me a crash course on how it works. I kind of have to figure it out as I go. So if it makes sense to me, the quarterbacks, only the top 12 actually get ranked.
No, I think it's definitely not every quarterback. Now I do rank all 32, and sometimes I rank a few more because, there's, a couple of those rushing Taysom Hill types who are going to get some points. And so you try to throw them in there just in case. But it's definitely not always, it's not all 30 or 32, whatever. And it's only the top 60 for receivers, stuff like that. But you try to go a little bit deeper than just that number. I think it kind of hurts you if you don't. But I'd say the biggest thing with it really is keeping them up to date. You'd be shocked at how many people set their rankings on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then they're never updated the rest of the week. And as long as you just update them with injuries and stuff I'm always tweaking my rankings about 12:30, 12:45 Eastern time on Sundays, because I'm just rebalancing everything out with guys that are inactive, and then how does that really affect everybody else. And the biggest thing I had to learn over the first couple of years that I did it was it's not if the number 2 receiver on a team is hurt, right? It's not just maybe you dip the quarterback slightly and maybe you put the #1 receiver up, but who's the 3rd and 4th and even the 5th receiver for that team who get a boost up? You got to remember everybody, and that's where you really gain ground.
Receivers for me was the most difficult, and then the handcuff running backs, that was always the hardest part for me. But how to rank Tony Pollard or Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, those types of running backs, those were always the hardest ones for me to rank, because it's not difficult for them to become fantasy relevant. They had easy paths to relevancy. And even as a backup, they had opportunities to pick up points. But, you know, it's difficult to also put them ahead of other running backs because, I mean, they're not even the starter.
Yeah, this year was definitely strange for me. Like this was one of the hardest years for at least the last 3 or 4 years for ranking. I just feel like there was so many crazy things that happened, you know, and it was super hard to predict a lot of the stuff. But kudos to like all the guys up top. I'm friends with a lot of them, and they are awesome, usually more times than not. So
yeah, I was going to say, I think you're going to improve next year because you finished last. So, you know, you've only got one way to go.
Yes. The first few weeks, I didn't understand it at all. Like, it didn't make any sense to me, and I didn't get any guidance. So ranking and trying to figure it out how to do it made no sense. And then throughout the middle, it started to make a little bit more sense. And then towards the end, that's when I kind of like started a little bit because I decided to have a little bit of fun. I wasn't doing too good. So I decided to have fun a little bit with it and then saying like, oh, I'm either getting first or last. There's no in between for me.
And you did.
Yes.
You either got first or last.
Yes, that's how it was. That's how it really was.
Go and have a look.
That's how it was. But hey, we have fun with it. We have fun. Next year, it makes a lot more sense now. So I think I'll definitely take it a little bit more serious next year. But of course, on this episode, we're going to be talking about some players that we definitely don't want to be touching and players I won't be putting in my rankings for next year's rankings and whatever you are doing or whatever type of leagues you're going to be in. And of course, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl. Or Sheahan, is this episode coming out before or after the Super Bowl?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the Super Bowl.
Okay, we're going to be talking about
We're going to be talking about the Super Bowl.
Okay, there we go. All right. So, of course, don't forget to follow the Sleeper Wire Show on Twitter. Make sure to join the Patreon. Of course, we are a charity podcast, so any donation amount gets donated to a charitable cause. We always highly appreciate it. And of course, following the Sleeper Wire Show on Twitter, that way you're up to date on articles, podcasts, live shows, and of course, stay up to date with the amazing team that we currently have. So, of course, the 10-foot pole and who we are not touching on there. All right, so I didn't necessarily put my list down because I feel like my list isn't as important as your guys' list. But I'm saying, like, if Laviska Shenault is on there, like, it's too easy of a pick. Antonio Gibson, he's too easy of a pick. Julio Jones, he's too easy of a pick. Anybody else on that list? Rashad Bateman, he's too easy of a pick. No, you're not allowed to pick them. Probably, I know Deebo Samuel might be a little bit one where people want to talk about. No, that's too easy. You know what? I'll put Cooper Kupp on there as well. That's too easy of a pick to talk about. But all right. So, Sheahan, we'll start it off with you.
Yep. So my first one actually comes courtesy of you, Joe. I was listening to an episode of your show today. I was like, oh, yeah, Rashad Penny is 100% my number one do not want to touch with a 10-foot pole this year. He won a lot of people leagues. He won me leagues at the back end of last year. And it just feels to me like a recipe for a player I don't want on my team. We saw it with Kenyon Drake a couple of years ago when he got hot during the fantasy playoffs, was overdrafted, and I don't think he was disappointing, I guess, compared to the expectations, but he had just an okay year. You add just an okay year to Rashad Penny, and Rashad Penny, I should say, and it's an underwhelming year, and he misses 4 or 5 games. So for me, right off the top, I have no interest in Rashad Penny. Is there potentially a reason I should reconsider that?
No, I mean, you listen to my show, you know how I feel. No, definitely not. I mean, look, pick him up in week 12 when he's going to come back off of whatever injury he had for the year and win you a league again, because he's done that, I feel like twice now in the last 4 years. So no, I'm not trusting him to stay healthy. And like, I don't really like Chris Carson anymore either. He just is continually banged up. I just am really avoiding the Seattle backfield unless they bring in somebody new at this point.
Seattle's backfield used to be always sought out after, especially with Marshawn Lynch. And then after that, I think they've been trying to just fill a void at the running back position. And I think that's where that team just can't get it together in the second half of the season. I think
Carson's
that's the biggest issue.
Carson's a solid RB2 if he could stay healthy the whole year. Like, he's got it, he's not flashy. He's not catching a ton of passes. He just has that massive touchdown upside with him because, Seattle's got this year bumps in the road, right? But Seattle usually has a good offense with Wilson and, DK and Lockett and stuff like that. And so Carson was always kind of a big driving factor of why they were good too. And he was scoring a lot of touchdowns. So I like him as a talent. he's still going to go in that like RB2, RB3 range. And he's been hurt a ton. He's always banged up. And so if he plays, it's like he gets hurt mid game and it crushes you.
He's good enough on your roster where you can't drop him if he's hurt.
Right.
And you know, hopefully you have an IR spot to stash him in, but if you happen to have like a AJ Brown who happened to be on the IR that week as well, or Julio Jones, who was on the IR consistently all of last year, storing a roster spot that you really can't afford to not have. And unfortunately, that's where Chris Carson and Rashad Penny kind of fall. I do think it'd be interesting if Chris Carson was not on the team next year.
Yeah, that would change things slightly for me, but it's still hard to trust him. I mean, we haven't seen a healthy year out of Rashad Penny in quite some time.
I don't think we've ever seen a healthy year out of Rashad Penny. I don't think we've ever seen a healthy year out of Chris Carson as well. So, I mean, death taxes and a Seattle running back being injured, we're going to have to settle with that. But of course, I mean, I think that's completely fair. I think Rashad Penny, Chris Carson, I think you both pair them up in this section where either one of those are going to be, I feel like if you ever take one of those running backs, it's because you have to in the draft, not because you want to.
Oh, you're going 0 RB or, wait until round 5 or 6 to grab your first at best. And yeah, they're just sitting there. You're going on the upsides there. And that's all you're playing for there. But most people don't play that way.
I'm not sure I'd feel comfortable going 0 RB and then looking at my roster and Rashad Penny sitting as my RB1. I'd be wondering maybe I should have gone a round or two earlier.
Yeah, say you got Cooper Kupp first pick in your draft. Say you have like a late slot where it's like 10 or 11. You took maybe Cooper Kupp, and then on the turn, maybe you took Tyreek Hill. And after that, you're kind of looking at your RB situations where you're at dire needs. Then from there, you probably have to start looking at taking like a Chris Carson in round 4 or 5 to secure at least having an RB2 spot available. But other than that, I don't see a reason to justify taking either one of those RBs.
I think if you got Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill as your first 2 picks off the board, you'd be pretty happy anyway.
You'd be happy, but running backs win leagues. If you don't have a good running back, you're definitely, at least personally, I feel like you're at a massive disadvantage without a good running back.
Strong disagree. And we're going to have this debate all off season.
I am more in agreement with Nader here, but I have started swinging the other way. I am not going to be a 0 RB guy ever, but I have started putting less prioritization on grabbing those like stud running backs because as we saw this year, they all die. It didn't. This year, running back almost didn't matter unless you had Jonathan Taylor and Mixon and for like a half of the season. I felt like, and I'm totally blanking on Eckler. Right, like if you had those 3, you were gold. Other than that, it's like they were all kind of the same. Who cared? Or hurt.
Yeah.
Or you could pick up Rashad Penny in week 15 and go win your league.
That is true.
There you go. That's kind of why I'm putting less prioritization. I want to at least take a stab at like one stud early, but I'm not gonna reach for them anymore at this point.
I definitely understand that. I think also format really matters. I think if you're looking at half point PPR to standard format, I think that really swings the needle towards the running back side. But once you start hitting full point PPR, I will agree with Sheahan. I think wide receivers start taking a drastic turn for a little bit more priority. Because Cooper Kupp, if you took away his touchdowns, he still averaged 20 fantasy points per game in full point PPR. That's how ridiculous he was. I mean, he had a ridiculous season that I don't think he could replicate.
No,
but
no
that's
way
just,
at all.
No,
that's just
no
how
chance.
dominant. That's just how dominant a solid wide receiver can be in full point PPR. But of course, let's move on from our Seattle dumpster fire. And Joe, what you got for us?
I'm going to start with Cordero Patterson. I know a lot of people, and myself included, were really amazed by how well he played this year. And, came out of nowhere. Nobody expected this at all. I, for one, was a big Mike Davis truther. Yeah, that's not helping me. So I remember why I was bad for running back for the first half of the season. Then I decided to stop ranking Mike Davis. No. But no, Patterson, I mean, look, this guy has been a complete dud in the NFL for, what is this? 7 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? And then he comes to Atlanta, wasn't supposed to be much of anything, and just is this Swiss Army knife. We started seeing he was Debo before Debo was Debo, right? Like, it was kind of crazy, but it was like the opposite. It was like, he was supposed to be a receiver that ended up being a running back that was then he was supposed to be a running back that was also a receiver. And then Debo was, supposed to be, but anyway, you know what I was trying to say that didn't come out right. But no, I mean, does anybody believe this is going to happen again with Patterson? I don't. I mean, look, I'm clearly ranking the guy because if nothing changes in Atlanta, I don't think they stop using him. But if you look at his game log, like down the stretch, they did stop using him a lot more. And they were using Mike Davis. And I don't know if it was because he's never come close to the workload he had this year. He had 153 rushes and 52 receptions. So over 200 touches on the season. He's never come anywhere close to that. So it's almost like he started wearing down, and you kind of saw it before they stopped using him. His yards per attempt were going down. His yards per catch were going down. His targets were dropping. And then he just sort of the last few weeks just sort of fell off the map. He was getting he didn't even get 10. He didn't even get 10 touches. Oh, sorry. Week 17, he got 11. But those other 2 weeks, it was 8 and 5. So not looking good for, that's not how you want to end the season as somebody who is sort of a breakout star there. So you'd like to see them finish off strong as well. And he didn't. And who knows what this Atlanta team is even going to look like next year. Like there's rumors that Matt Ryan may not be there. Who knows what that means. So I'm sort of off of it.
I think that's totally fair on Cordarrelle Patterson. He's a free agent at the end of this year as well. I don't see any world where he doesn't come back to Atlanta, or at least Atlanta don't want him to be a big part of it. I think maybe the one thing that will save him, at least from being displaced by a rookie or an early round rookie, is there's just so many holes on that Atlanta team that they can't afford to waste the capital you'd need on probably a day 1 or 2 running back who is going to displace him from the moment he comes into the building. But there's no reason why they can't pair Mike Davis and Cordarrelle Patterson with Sony Michel, Jeff Wilson, Marlon Mack, someone like that. And it becomes a 3-headed, underwhelming monster. I'd be more interested in Cordarrelle Patterson if that was the case, because you think he's probably going to be able to be more explosive with some other people around him and taking that pressure off. If you're having to give him the ball 20 times a game, then you're not going to get that value from him. But then you're almost back to, okay, he's Cordarrelle Patterson again. He's this offensive weapon who can do anything, but maybe doesn't get the opportunity to. So I'm right there with you. I had no interest. I kind of had no interest in him this season, and I was so effusive in not wanting any part of him that even when he blew up, I just, again, no interest in him.
I ended up getting him in at least one league, but it was sort of like I was just waiting for the bottom to fall out and I ended up trading him maybe a tad too early. But I was sort of like, I was trying to sell super high, and I did. And I just traded for DK Metcalf, who decided to not play football for, the middle part of the season there. My other thing with Patterson, right, is that you look at his per game log and his yards per average and yards per catch, and they seem really high, but he was very big play dependent. I felt like he had 1 or 2 big plays every game, and maybe that's just what we can expect from him. But otherwise, man, it was this is the Atlanta offense, right? It was just bad, and so he looked bad. It was very inefficient ball outside of 2 or 3 plays every game.
Yeah, and early in the season, he was getting those big plays, like you say. He was, and all of a sudden, those, and this can happen to players, not just Cordarrelle Patterson, any kind of explosive big play player, where those early season 60-yard runs slowly become 40, and then all of a sudden they're kind of 15 and they're getting mowed down. It happens to the best of us. We slow down the longer we do whatever it is that we're doing. But that's the price you pay for, I guess, a big player. I guess that's kind of why we're having this segment or this discussion, is looking at it's always going to be a discussion around who's got sustainable value. And I'm sure he won't come up because he's the new hotness, and that's Jamar Chase. But you could look at that and go, there's likely to be an element of regression there. Do you want to pay up for big play production when teams are going to have another year of film on him?
Well, I think for Patterson's case, I think because everybody picked him up on waivers, the amount of investment to return was insane. because of that, you know,
100%.
his three touchdown games were week winners. So it was definitely worth having him. And, you know, when he did dud a little bit, I still would consider it worth it considering the price you paid for Cordell Patterson. But I think his versatility, especially in Yahoo leagues, I'm not sure if it's like that for ESPN, where you could put him in the wide receiver and the running back slot. I think that also adds some sort of value for Cordell Patterson, because say you're having a rough bye week or a rough injury week, you could adjust your lineup in a way to still circumvent whatever injury or bye week type of situation you currently have. I do think that the situation has to stay the same for Cordell Patterson, but I think they also need to draft offensive linemen to really aid him, so he's able to actually produce on a more consistent basis and not be that big play potential threat that you necessarily need for him to actually be fantasy relevant. But other than that, I'm not necessarily staying away from Cordell. I'm not just too interested in it. I think that's where I am.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to your point about Jamar Chase. Yeah, I'm with you on, I'm not drafting him where he is likely to go. I think there will be a lot of people looking at him as a late first round, super early second round talent. I probably have him more as a back end second round player right now on my rankings for next year. And I mean, look, a lot can change, but I think there's going to be a lot of regression. Look, we saw a lot of games. I did a show last night where we talked about some of the prop bets, and the over under on Chase for yards this week is like 80. He had over half his games under 80 yards. So like, he was like super boom bust, and like, yeah, he was amazing. I mean, overall an amazing player, don't get me wrong, but for fantasy, man, having that consistency matters, especially those first two picks. Like, yeah, you know, his 30-point weeks are going to win you, but those weeks where you invested, you know, again, you know, you talk about investment for Patterson, investment for Chase this year was pretty small compared to what he gave you for sure. So next year is not going to be that way. And it's the same thing with like Cooper Kupp, right? Like Cooper Kupp was super cheap this year, you know, and he was by far the most dominant fantasy player on the board when it all came to close, especially in PPR. So like, do you pay up for that? You know, we all did with Diggs this year, and look where that got us. He was still good, but he wasn't what he was last year, but we all paid for it.
So right now, I think Diggs and Chase are going to have similar ADPs. Who would you rather have?
I think I'd still rather go Diggs.
Diggs? Assuming, because these two teams, I don't think they're going to have significant changes in the offseason when it comes to their offense. I don't think Buffalo's going to go out and get another wide receiver. I don't think they're going to, if they get anything on the offense, I think it'll be a running back and maybe an offensive lineman. Other than that, I think they're going to be shoring up their defense, trying to figure out how to stop Kansas City. Maybe Tre'Davious White, when he's back, it'll help a lot. But, on Cincinnati side, they already have stud wide receivers all around. I don't think they're going to go ahead and draft one. I think they need to draft an offensive lineman. I think that's what they're going to do. So if they do draft an offensive lineman and the offensive lineman does secure that line a little bit, then I think Chase has a little bit more of a potential upside than Stephon Diggs.
Yep, I agree. Although on exposed form, Diggs is probably in the better situation. It depends how I'm trying to build that roster.
It's tough.
I kind of like swinging for the fences with some of my rosters and going, I want all boom bust guys. And I feel like that high school coach or now college coach who just goes for it on fourth down. Every fourth down, every 2-point conversion, they're going for it because it feels like you've got to score points to win and you might as well go all out to do it. So if I'm looking at that, it's Chase. If
I have them back to back in my
I don't like
right
Diggs.
now. It's so hard. I do have Chase ranked one higher currently, so I guess I've got to go Chase. I did these rankings like over a month ago, so I kind of forgot.
So let's see, who is in a worse division?
Diggs. I mean, they got the Jets. And I mean, the Patriots are okay. Miami's not great. I mean, since he's still got Baltimore and Seattle's Seattle. Who am I trying to? Steelers. Their defense is still, usually pretty good. And the Browns defense is good.
I don't know. I feel like for Chase, there's at least potential of a bit of a second year dip because we saw teams figure him out this year.
It's sophomore slump for a reason.
And he's right there with Diggs and another guy who's like to my mind, Chase probably has the tools to be better than him, but Tyreek Hill, where teams have figured him out, but it's whether figuring out and stopping him are two very different issues. And I think we've seen teams figure out Chase. There are other mouths to feed.
I'll tell you this. I probably won't take Chase where he's going. I'd rather pay the multiple round discount and go get Higgins.
Yep.
That is
just
fair.
to get a piece of that offense.
That's fair. I agree with that take. I will take Diggs, and then I flip. I'm taking Diggs, and then I'll wait a couple of rounds. I'll take Higgins. I like that take a lot.
Yep. Yeah. Totally agree.
As wild as this topic has taken us, let's go back to Sheahan with another person you'd rather not touch.
I'm going to have this as a caveat. That this sort of extends to just about everyone in this position. But the poster boy for it is going to be Mike Williams. And I love Mike Williams. He was excellent for me in the first half of the year. Fell off the face of the earth. I can see Nader's got a stupid grin on his face, even more stupid than normal. So he's going to have some comment coming up. I suppose that's how the format works. Mike Williams, to me, is the archetypal contract year, gets paid, goes to another team, does nothing. There is no situation that he can go to that is better than being with Justin Herbert in that offense. You could argue that maybe he went to the Bills or the Chiefs. Personally, I think that's a wash. That's not because Herbert is on the same level as Allen and Mahomes, but they are a slightly better offense, at least in my mind. And we saw Williams was that boom-bust big play guy, and that's who he's going to be. He's going to win downfield. He scores touchdowns. He did that this year with 9 touchdowns and averaging 15 yards per reception. He did it on 76 receptions to be the wide receiver 12. Ahead of him with fewer receptions is Mike Evans. The 2 players above him with less than 100 receptions are Jamar Chase, who we've just talked about, and Deebo Samuel, who was also a running back. So there's a lot of water to go under that bridge for him to be that player again, particularly when we've seen him be disappointing for so long. So if he goes somewhere else and you're expecting him to be the wide receiver 1, I don't see it happen. And would extend that discussion to basically any free agent wide receiver that is not Devontae Adams, because I think wherever he's going to go, he's going to get peppered with targets. But we're talking about Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin. They're kind of the big names this year. Juju, if he goes somewhere else, not really that interested in him. But Mike Williams is the poster boy for me.
I think I've said this plenty of times how much I hate Mike Williams. He's up there with Laviska Shenault. Oh, sorry. He who must not be named. He's up there with him. But one thing I will say is if he was to go to the Falcons, I'd be a little bit more interested in him. But right now, no, Mike Williams is no. He is the definition of, he has one good game. Everybody go pick him up, put him in your starting lineup. And then he goes out and gets 1 catch for 5 yards. Then you take him out of your starting lineup. Then he goes off again. And then you put him back in your starting. And then he does that. That's all Mike Williams is. He knows exactly when you start him. And he's going to specifically dud out for that day. Just don't do it. Just don't do it.
I have a funny story about Mike Williams. So I have him in Dynasty, right? I've had him since the start. 2017, his rookie year, obviously did nothing. The next year, 11 touchdowns, and I was like, whoa. All right, I got a stud. Then kind of nothing, duds for the next couple of years. And then the very start of this year, obviously he goes off, right? 12 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, 4, 16 targets again. He's like wide receiver. What was he like? Wide receiver 3 at that point in the season. Yeah. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. Hey, who wants him? Who wants him? Yeah, I got a first round pick out of that baby. And I was like, bye. And then he just died, and I was like, love it. So I actually like Mike Williams' talent. I think he was used super improperly in the San Diego offense or LA offense, both actually. So you saw in the beginning of the year, right? They were using him in different route trees, right? They were using him as slants and stuff like that. And then they just stopped. They were just like, oh yeah, we're supposed to use him as like a deep route guy only. And they started doing that again. And you're like, stop it. This guy clearly can do more than that. And they just didn't for whatever reason. And I actually kind of hope he goes somewhere different with like a better coaching staff that might be able to utilize him more. I still think the talent is there. I'm not going to be totally off of him, but he's not going to be somebody I'm going to, target specifically. He's kind of in this like range of receivers for me that I'm just sort of blah about all of them. But, I'll probably end up taking at least one of those guys at some point. So
just a quick little this or that. We'll go Brandon Ayuk or Mike Williams.
That's a Ayuk.
Williams for me.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd probably rather have neither, but I'll take Ayuk over him.
You can't set up the game and then say, "Oh, actually, I'll have a third option."
I'm the
was
game
not presented to either of you.
I'm the
You
game
both are wrong.
I will take Darnell Mooney.
I can do that. I made the rules. I can change them. That's how it works. I don't know. Like, they call me China in the Olympics right now, the way I'm just adjusting everything to my benefit. Anyway, Joe, give me a name.
All right. So this one's not going to be any surprise if you listen to my podcast. It's Amari Cooper. I absolutely, yes, I'm going to use the word. I hate Amari Cooper for fantasy. I think he is a good NFL receiver, and he's had some pretty monster overall years. But if you go back and look at his overall stats, and then you go game by game, he is one of the most inconsistent receivers out there. And I know you said earlier, you kind of like the boom bust guys, but he has like 3 games all year long where he just blows up. And they are massive, like 40-point game, massive. And the other weeks, he's like single-digit points. And he's costing people very high draft picks. Now, he's slid down the list. I think people are starting to catch on finally. But I still want nothing to do with him. Nothing. Absolutely nothing to do with him.
He is the definition of Houdini, where he could just show up and then just disappear right after. It is ridiculous. I mean,
it's funny. I always feel like week 1 is one of his big weeks too. It's like he's like Sammy Watkins. It's like, hey, I'm awesome, and then like nothing for weeks. At least he shows back up at least another couple times. Sammy Watkins is like, I'm done for the year, guys. Bye.
he gives you one opportunity to sell high. Sammy Watkins does. If you fail that moment, that's it. You're done with him. You're stuck.
You got to be in a league with a bunch of chumps to be able to sell him. I'm sorry.
I tried. Well, one time for the memes. One time I specifically did that, and then I think Sammy Watkins, he did put up a 30 burger, and I think I sent a trade offer to every single person in my league trying to get something. I did it, and the week after I just dropped him because I knew it was going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, you guys know Bob Long, right? The rest of the Football Consistency Guide. He backs it up in there every single year that Amari Cooper is super inconsistent, and to where, yes, he has value, the return on investment's not there overall. Like, he's going to hurt you more weeks than he helps you. So in best ball, maybe he's fine. But in a standard redraft league, like he's going to hurt you because he's also one of those players you can't bench him because he's got that potential of just absolutely destroying it for you.
Yeah, you can't sit him at any point. If he's healthy, you have to start him. But that offense just has so many mouths to feed. I mean, whether it's Zeke, Pollard, CD, Williams has kind of shown up a little bit, Gallup, and now Cooper.
Gallup may not be there, but yeah, we'll see.
That's true. But there's still a lot of mouths to feed, and there's they just don't have enough possessions or enough consistency around the football to be able to just secure everybody fantasy points, especially if they're not playing their division. I mean, when they're playing their division, go ahead, start Amari Cooper. If they're playing the Washington football team, go ahead, start Amari Cooper. But if they're not doing any of that, then.
Well, even in 2019, right? So I'm looking at half PPR points. In 2019, this is before Lamb was there, right? Started out the year 19, 12, 23, 7, 34, had a 0.8. What? 13, 16, 26. That's the first half of the year. And you're thinking, I'm good to go. That's a really good start to the year. 5, 0, 12, 17, 2, 4, and 11. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the last 6 games were single digits and like really bad. Like, not even, they weren't like 9s. They were 5s, 4s. That's not good. I mean, he's killing you. And that's without CeeDee Lamb. You add CeeDee Lamb to the mix, everything got way worse.
And he had what is it, 4th round, 3rd round draft capital to him?
Yeah,
this year
around that.
Probably. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a lot lower than that right now. For next year, people are obviously catching on, but there's still so many Amari Cooper truthers out there, and I can't do it anymore. I never could.
Shane?
I'm feeling out on him for a guy who I've been a staunch supporter of his for a long time, but the numbers just add up. That you can't rely on him. And this year felt like the least reliable. And I was always prepared to kind of wear the bad weeks because he has the high weeks, and that's the risk you take with the boom bust. I've stayed away from him from redraft, but he's been a mainstay of one of my dynasty teams for a while. I'm kind of feeling like now's the time to get out from under him in Dynasty. But if I can get him in the 7th or 8th round in redraft this year, if that's where he slipped to, I don't know if he'll fall that far. Then kind of sign me up. Well, with the proviso that I can build have other players around him to offset his basically bad weeks. And I can start him against the Washington Commanders and start him on Thanksgiving and all those sorts of things and get those big games from him, but live with the 0.8 week that he's going to deliver every year, or the 3 weeks of 2 that he's going to get. I did feel like the wheels kind of fell off the Cowboys offense, and in the back half of the year, they sort of forgot what they were doing as well. And I expected Cooper to be better, and now with Gallup missing most of the year, I actually kind of expected Cooper to be looking for a new home this year, but I think Gallup injured, he probably sticks around. Yeah, he's going to be price tag dependent for me. I'm not going to chase him, but if he falls to me in those middle rounds, maybe I'll take a look at him.
So let's see. I'm trying to think of like a good person around that range. Like I think Mike Williams, I think that's a little too easy to pick Amari Cooper.
Adam Thielen, I feel like they'll be in a similar conversation this year.
I think I'll go Thielen. Thielen's too consistent.
Yeah, I definitely have Thielen. See, I always rank Cooper higher than I'll take him, just because that's another thing with the rankings. You'll find out like you have to rank a certain way. It doesn't mean I'm drafting that way. It just means like that's how the projections fall sometimes. Doesn't mean I want that player. Your roster buildup is different, but I personally would want a Thielen the way that I like to build rosters. Will Cooper finish with more points overall in the year? Maybe, because he's got that like super boom potential for a few games, and that's just gonna that propels him up to the top just a little bit more. But I like Thielen, but they've got to figure out what they're doing there with quarterback as well too. So who knows?
Also true. So I think this would be a good thing to revisit right before the season starts, because I know obviously situations are going to change. Head coaches, whether they get hired or fired, or draft changes, trade changes, free agency changes, those are all going to alter these kind of picks a little bit. But I think for the most part, these players that we have talked about have consistently been disappointing, whether it's been injury prone, inconsistency issues, or just not playing to the potential that we potentially thought that they could have been.
Can I give you two more? And I won't go into analysis on them, but just two more real quick.
Let's hear it.
Same team, and obviously situation could change pending quarterback change. So if that happens, maybe I'm back in. But as of right now, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, nope.
Oh yeah, true.
Nothing.
Yep. Cortland Sutton has burned me a handful of times because you feel like the situation's there for him. Like he's set up to succeed. There's no Jerry Jeudy. He was hurt a decent amount. There's no weapons. Good matchup. You put in Sutton, and then he ends up with 2 catches for 15 yards. Yeah. He's disappointing.
They've got to get that offense fixed, and it's got to start with the quarterback. I like both of those guys as a talent. It's not working there right now.
No, not at all.
I'm not all out on Jeudy. I think if you can get him at a discounted price, which you absolutely will be able to, he feels like a follow the process as opposed to the outcome guy, and I like them when I'm looking for undervalued players. And I think in a better offense, they're going to try and feed in the ball. Sutton, to me, just is going to be too inconsistent. He's a big jump ball guy. Another thing I agreed with and heard about on the episode I was listening to at your show, Joe, that the big guy who wins in college is just a dinosaur in the NFL these days.
Yeah.
And Sutton's kind of was that to begin with, and then he had the knee injury. He was never really a technique guy anyway, and yeah, he's probably better at winning those jump balls than a lot of other NFL receivers, but it is hard to predict. He doesn't have the strings to his bow. At least there's a bit of craft with Jeudy, and I think if they do stick with Bridgewater, then I can see at least a path for interesting weeks for Jeudy. No, I don't see that for Sutton.
I think they got to bring in somebody totally different for me to buy into these guys.
Yes. If Bridgewater's the quarterback, I'm done with that offense, and then I'm going to laugh and make fun of the person who does draft those players.
I'm sure you will.
Yes, I will do it on a consistent basis. I'll send it to them in the group chats, and I'll make memes out of them. But all right. So that's enough of the 10-foot pole and people who will not be getting anywhere near close to us. But of course, we have the biggest game of football coming up. No, not the Pro Bowl. Sorry, everybody. But the Super Bowl. Of course, the Chiefs and the Bengals. I mean, everybody's heard analysis at
So
this
the
point.
Chiefs and the Bengals is the Rams and the Bengals. Clearly, you haven't heard enough analysis.
Oh my God.
You don't know
True. I still have the COVID bread. I'm still working on that right now. I'll be honest. I'm still disappointed by it. I'm still disappointed. I wanted like the Rams, Bengals, Niners, Bengals, something like that. Anyway,
it is Rams.
It's the Rams, Bengals.
I know. I still missaid it.
You wanted the Rams Bengals. Congratulations. We got the Rams Bengals.
Thank you. See, I manifested it. Enough of my stupidity. Sheehan, tell me who's going to win.
Right. So we're going to use a recycled format from our other show, my other show,
Okay.
the Great Debate. And I'm going to say each of us has 90 seconds to argue for who we think will win the Super Bowl. If one of the other people says anything egregious while they're talking, if the person says anything egregious while they're talking during their 90-second window, you can throw a challenge flag and jump in and get them to justify their points. So, Nader, you can go first. Tell us who's going to win and why. And just a reminder, it's the Bengals and the Rams playing. That's the Bengals and the Rams.
I just learned who was playing. And you want me to somehow create an argument? That's kind of not fair. All righty, I'll do it. So let's talk about legacy real fast. And we're going to talk about Matthew Stafford's legacy and what would it be whether he lost or won. And if he lost, he's just going to be a laughing. He's a meme. That's it. If he loses his game, he's a meme. And if Joey Burrow wins, then I mean he's just a legend at this point. Or he could be the next Aaron Rodgers, where everybody crowns him the king, where everybody thinks, oh, he's probably going to be the next dynasty master, where he might be leading on Tom Brady's footsteps, and then not win anything after that. And then he's going to be kind of like the NFC Championship game meme of the Aaron Rodgers folks. But I'm going to give this one to Matthew Stafford because I think the Rams are really good, and I think the defensive line for the Rams is far superior than the Bengals offensive line. And Jalen Ramsey's good enough to keep Chase at under 80 yards. Like you mentioned, the prop bet, I would go with the under on that one. And I would probably assume Aaron Donald comes out with at least 2 or 3 sacks this game, maybe even a strip sack, little recovery. And then of course, Cooper Kupp, I don't see anybody on the Bengals that can cover him at that point, or even OBJ. And then, I mean, Cam Akers, as long as he's holding on to the football, they got a running game going. I think they have everything that they need to win a Super Bowl. They're just such a complete team right now. That was a minute 30. I think actually, sorry, that was what was that? 88 seconds. Good. Yeah. Thank you. That was not pretty good. That was phenomenal. That's phenomenal.
That is good.
That. See, that's what happens when I go first. Follow it.
Yeah, exactly. You're a big game player. Joe, do you want to tell us who's winning?
Yeah, so I'm going the Rams also. A lot of the same points that Nader made. Look, the defensive line for the Rams is top notch. They were like top 3 or 4 in the league in most sacks. The Bengals were top 3 in the league for most sacks allowed. We saw them beat the Titans in the playoffs, allowing 9 sacks to Joe Burrow. The Rams offense is better than the Titans offense, and they're not going to be able to, overcome 9 sacks, to Joe Burrow in that Rams offense. This is not going to happen. I mean, look, the Rams sort of stumbled there near the end of the season. It was kind of right after all the trades, right? And things have just sort of melded together. We've seen OBJ, as much as I don't really like the guy, he's really made a difference on that team. Cooper Kupp's obviously a stud, but we've seen Von Miller, step up. Cam Akers has looked good at times. He's not dominant yet. Hopefully he just has to not fumble the ball away for them in order to stay in it. But I do think it's going to be a close game, probably field goal game. 27-24 is where I'm going with it in favor of the Rams. But I think the overall talent on that Rams side is going to overtake the Bengals and this hot run that they're on. So that's my take. Minute 24. Beat it.
Yeah. Even better.
How? No. I was at minute 26. Right?
Minute 22.
Minute 22? That's not fair. You just looked at the clock and then just kind of said, all right when it stopped. And then right when it got to that point, you just said, all right, I'm done.
It's called clock management.
Yes, I did.
See? That's not fair. All right, Sheehan, come on. Let's hear it. Beat it.
I'd love to make an argument for the Bengals that extends beyond Bengal magic.
Oh, they're doing it for Harambe. I forgot. Never mind. I'm switching my thing. They're doing it for Harambe.
There we go. They're doing it for Harambe. They're doing it for Chris Wessling. Whoever they're doing it for, there is no argument you can make beyond Bengal magic as far as I'm concerned. I think if they are going to win, they need to force Stafford to beat them. And that means lock down on Cooper Kupp and make Stafford make those boneheaded throws that he can do from time to time. We've seen him be really consistent this year, that he's eliminated a lot of those elements from his game, or at least they're less obvious on a better team. But he's still prone.
Really? You know, he threw 17 interceptions this year. He is really bad, interceptions wise. He cleaned it up at the end of the season and in the postseason, big time. That's why.
Yeah, he certainly drifted in that middle part of the year. If they can force him to throw those picks and they can make plays, they're just not a playmaking defense as far as I'm concerned. And on the other side, you've got Aaron Donald, who is going to eat on this offensive line. They shut him down. As you said, they've got Von Miller. There is death by a million cuts on that defense. I'm not sure Ramsey follows Chase, but for me, I really want the Bengals to win, but I don't think they will. That's 128-92.
I just want to see Chris Collinsworth really sad. That's what I want to see. I want to see a close-up of him crying.
Is there a radio broadcast I can go instead of listening to him all game? Please.
Now, here's a radio broadcast. I'm sure there will be. We get our own feed over here in London. So
I might just put on Sirius XM, like NFL networks, like Call of It or something, and just because I can't do a whole Super Bowl with Collinsworth, especially with his team.
Now, here's the guy that, then blah, 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 exactly what Chris Collinsworth.
Back in my day when I was playing, that's what he says all the time.
And then
nobody cares, man.
And he got demolished when he played, especially in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
That's what I want to say. I think the Rams are going to absolutely demolish the Bengals just because Chris Collinsworth's calling the game. And I just want to see him sad. That's about it.
By the way, I had no idea how to throw the challenge flag or whatever, but that was my attempt, by the way.
Perfect. You just yell. I like it.
I didn't know if I was supposed to have like a whistle ready or like throw a flag on my screen. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but
it's been a feature of the Great Debate all season, and I've never really nailed down how you do it.
Okay.
So that's as good as anything that's happened. I do kind of feel like this is going to be one that I switch off and go to bed at about halftime. I think this could be like 3 or 4, or maybe let's say 20 odd points in the Rams' favor. I don't want it to go that way, but I could easily see it happening. If they can't keep Burrow upright, then
so I mean, in theory, the Bengals, they picked off Patrick Mahomes twice. I mean, and the Buffalo Bills, who were the number one defense, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. You they want to stop Patrick Mahomes, and somehow the Bengals picked him off twice. I don't know. If the Bengals could pick off Patrick Mahomes, they have the opportunity to pick up, intercept Matthew Stafford. Do I think they will? No, but I think they have the opportunity.
And you also got to consider, like you brought up Pat Mahomes, like he destroyed him in the first half. It's the second half until the very last drive. It was like 42 yards passing for Mahomes. It was unbelievable how well that defense played in the second half. So, yeah, can they do it? Sure. Will they? I don't know. I mean, they've obviously stopped 2 really good teams so far. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be way more of an interesting game than you.
When they switched from zone to man, they looked at a whole better defense, and Mahomes really struggled to adjust. So if they start in man, that's what I mean in terms of if they can try and force Stafford to beat them, then they're in with a chance. I think if they try and play this sort of bend don't break mentality, give up a lot of yards, then Stafford will just pick him off underneath all day.
The problem with man defense is that you cannot play that all game. It is too tiring on the defensive side to play man. So you have to play a majority of zone defense and then probably third down man defense. Usually that's what teams kind of opt for.
Well, they've been doing it like they kind of play real soft in the first half, especially in the playoffs and the last end of the few games of the season, and then like the second half they'll get real tight and play man more and things like that. Like so they switch it up and just make massive adjustments at halftime, which has been working for them. But I mean, how many times are you going to come down from multiple scores to win a game, especially in the playoffs? It's so tough to do.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. So before we move on and end the show, basically, I'd like to ask you guys, I know Sheahan has a little mini segment that he stole from me. I don't know if you want to do that again.
Yes, I do. That's why it's on the run sheet.
Yeah, you stole that segment. I don't know how to feel about that. I'd like to ask real fast. Okay, I'm sure you guys heard by now, Kyler Murray has deleted everything that has to do with the Cardinals off his Instagram and I think Twitter as well. Is this like him saying, get rid of the head coach? Is he saying, get rid of me? Is he just butthurt that he got absolutely annihilated in the playoffs? So something has to happen for this to happen.
No idea. I heard about it yesterday. It was yesterday, right?
I think it was 2 days ago.
Yeah. Actually. Either way, it's sort of like, I don't know what that means. I know a lot of people are like, oh, here comes the Oakland Athletics. No, probably not. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure they'll sing Kumbaya and be friends again soon.
Who's got the time to do that on social media? Like,
clearly he
has people to do it for him.
Exactly. I still have pictures of my ex on my Facebook from like 10 years ago because I can't be bothered going back to delete them. And he's sitting there untagging himself from every Cardinals picture. Nah, get a life. And then people out there reading into it, I guess players do it so they can be in the headline, but who's to say why?
So I'm assuming that it's going to be contract negotiation type stuff. I think he is now officially eligible for an extension. I think year 3 is when you're eligible for one. And mathematically, this is year 3 or year 4 him going into. So he is available to get a contract extension. So I think he's trying to go for one. And he's trying to use I'll play baseball as leverage. I don't think it'll work considering how bad he played in the playoffs. I wouldn't pay Kyler Murray, but that's just my take. I think he's trash. But that is a take for another time. Any closing thoughts before we move on to Sheahan segment?
I got nothing.
Nah, cool. Sheahan, lead it out.
Well, it's still only me stealing your segment because I haven't rebranded it yet.
Yeah,
so
okay, that's fair.
The question is really for Joe here, and it's a two-parter. One part is actually on the run sheet, the other part is not. So the first part of this is what are you drinking Super Bowl Sunday, and
all right.
what advice do you have for people who, it's a big drinking day? What do you recommend for people who might be getting stuck into some high ABV options on the day?
So for me, I will be drinking. I had not picked out my stuff for the weekend. I got some stuff in the fridge, but it's all just my normal stuff. I like to try to go buy some special stuff that I haven't had before, but it'll be some sort of IPA, probably a double or an imperial. They are usually high ABVs. All I gotta say is take it slow. It can be a very long game, and no matter how much food you eat, it's not gonna matter. So yes, you don't want to be that guy at the Super Bowl party passing out at the third quarter or just being a total buffoon. So yeah, just take it easy, enjoy the game. 2-3 max, I would say, during the game, especially if they're the higher ones. Just have fun with it though, and enjoy whatever you are drinking, and if you do drink.
Good advice all around. Drink responsibly, as always. I certainly been guilty of going a little bit too hard too early.
Oh, so yes, me too.
I'm a 1 can per quarter.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'll end up falling. That overtime game a few years ago got me. I was like, oh man, I got all hyped. I was like, wait, do I get another one? Yeah, and then that was a mistake the next morning at work.
I'm gonna die on the hill. Super Bowl should be on a Saturday. There's no reason for it to be on a Sunday.
Monday needs to be a holiday.
One of the two.
In Cincy it is. Come on, they know better.
The AFL Grand Final in Australia is played on a Saturday, and then not only that is where I'm from, my state has the Monday off as well afterwards. So that's the perfect setup. 3-day weekend, get into it. I don't know. I don't know why it's a Sunday, and then it's obviously rubbish for me over here because it kicks off at 11:30 or something at night.
Oh, jeez.
You're rolling into work the next day. And ever since the Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl, I've either taken the day off or worked from home deliberately because I struggled through that day. Having stayed up to watch Brady lose, which was very disappointing. We didn't really get into Brady or the Washington Commanders or anything this week, Nader. Maybe we'll catch up with that next week.
Yeah, we got lots of time for that. We got lots of time.
I was going to say we don't have time now. My last question for you, Joe, is what one piece of advice do you have to make our listeners a better fantasy player for the next season?
My number one piece of advice is do not go into a draft with a set strategy. You cannot go into round 1 going, I have to get a running back. And then round 2, I have to get a running back, or, whatever. Like, you can't pigeonhole yourself into, you got to get a position here. You got to get a position there. Play the board, find the values. That's how you're going to win.
Yep.
I disagree.
Very good advice. I know you have one strategy, which is the running backs, and then if in doubt, take a running back.
If in doubt, take a running back. You see a running back, you take running back. It's like, monkeys see banana, take banana. That's just how it is. Banana's the running back, you take it. That's it. Like, you never have a bad team when you have running backs. That's it. Like, when you look at your opponent's roster that you're playing that week and you see something like Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, or like Nick Chubb, something like that, and in their starting lineup, you're like, oh, like, I probably lost this week, I'll look next week, but if you see somebody like Tyreek Hill and then Antonio Gibson and then like Clyde Edwards-Helaire on the other guy's roster because that's how he drafted the first 3 picks, you're like, I probably won. I'll move on.
There are lots and lots of running backs who went in the first and second round that I could counter argue that with big time.
I don't disagree with you there on that point, because this year it felt like, unless
it's not just this year. It's not just this year. It's like every year, dude. Yeah,
but that's why you draft a bunch of running backs. Oh, one doesn't work out.
I will. So especially early on, like, I'll load up in running backs in the middle rounds for sure. Like, but I still want the value. At some point, I've got to take a running back. I'm not saying not take running backs, but I'm saying, like, you can't lock yourself into a strategy of running back, receiver, running back, or whatever. Like, you never know who's actually going to fall to you. And you can just look at it and be like, oh no, there's no way I can pass this guy up. And I wanted to take somebody else here, but that's going to make my team so much better. And I'll just figure something out later. That's the way I feel like. And look, the waiver wire plays so much of a difference in the leagues. Like, you'll figure it out.
You should. Now, if you're in the first round, half-point PPR league, and you're like the 7th pick, there's like Devontae Adams, assuming, let's assume the Green Bay situation stays the same. Aaron Rodgers there, Devontae's there. You're at the 7th pick overall, and you see Devontae Adams and Nick Chubb, half-point PPR. Which one are you going to go? Adams?
Yeah.
Sheahan?
Probably Chubb.
Yeah,
probably Chubb, but also I'm trying to debut the club sandwich method of drafting this year, so Chubb fits into that nicely, and also his name rhymes with club, which is why it's a good pick.
All right. That's fair.
But no, I'm always a wide receiver over a running back guy. I think the positional value between them is not what people want you to believe, not what people have you believe, and I think so many of the industry experts kind of grew up, if you like, on the you need RBs, and it's about being ahead of the curve and finding the value before the rest of the industry or the rest of the people you're playing with, and that's why I think the value is wide receiver. That was borne out this year, Nader, because my hands are covered in silverware and yours are not.
That's not fair, because I did win a league, so I do have silverware.
Yeah, but did you win 6 of them?
No, unfortunately. I've already talked about this. How do I make the championship? And what was it? I think 5 leagues and only come out with like 1.
I mean,
you sound like my luck.
You didn't know who was playing in the Super Bowl. You probably didn't know who was in the championship.
It's true. Probably, honestly. If I relook at those relook at those leagues, I was probably last place on all of them. And I was just having COVID brain once again. But all right, that's going to have to wrap up this episode. I think we just topped the hour mark total. Of course, this was a fun episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like talking about people I hate. It's fun. I enjoy it a lot. But of course, Joe, where can everybody find you?
So I'm on Twitter at F6P_Joe. The site is fantasy6pack.net, and we're going to be hopefully doing a rebranding, a redesign of the site here in the next week or so. So something to look forward to. Not going to be groundbreaking, but it'll just be a little bit of a cleaner feel to the site, easier to navigate and things like that. Obviously, the Fantasy Six Pack Hour as well, which we air Thursday nights, usually around 9 o'clock live Eastern time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to say thanks again, guys, for having me on. I had a blast.
There we go. Of course,
pleasure. Thanks for joining us. As always, I'm at Sheahan Solo on Twitter. You can start today with everything we're doing. For Across the Sleepwire team, we have a bunch of writers digging into this year's rookie class. I'm not one of them just yet. Fate continues to conspire against me from actually delving too deeply into tape, but you can stay up to date with everything Sleepaway, everything Screen Pass as well, everything 32-bit over there. So come and say hi.
Of course. You can follow me at Top Tier Tactics. I highly encourage not following because I'm not very active on Twitter. If you do, it's fun. Michael Florio followed me, so I thought that was kind of cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate that one. Other than that, hey, good luck, everybody.